Hey everybody, Nick here, and today got a disassembly and maintenance video for you on this little guy. This is the newest in the EDX line from OchsWorx knives. Very, very interesting little piece, and very curious to take it apart and see where things are at. So, okay, looking at the knife immediately, this is roughly fresh from the factory. Carried it a couple of days, but just because life's been busy, but I do want to give it a disassembly here. And what we're seeing is the centering is roughly dead on. Action here, the tent is a little on the harder side. Not terrible, but I kind of imagine that as we clean this guy up, that'll get a little nicer. And the action here is smooth. Honestly, it feels a little tight, maybe a little dry. But anyways, we're in pretty good shape here. Next question we need to ask ourselves is, well, okay, there are a bunch of screws here. Which ones do we care about? Which ones do we need to remove? My bet is that we're going to need to remove this, this, and this. This guy under this clip here are just holding in the inlay. And if I look inside using my handy little flashlight here, yeah, we can see you can see that screw there and that screw there don't go all the way through. So I really do think the only things we're going to need to put in there are, take out of there, that is, are this, this, and this. And I'm hoping to be able to do that. I'm thinking T8 for the pivot. Yep, T8 for the pivot. Free spinning pivot. Grab my pivot tool. By the way, if you're curious about this or any of the other tools that I'm using on the channel, go ahead and check out nickshabazz.com/tools. And you'll get a full list. Okay, pivot came out. Very small pivot screw, whatever. Oh, yeah, and then these guys have to come out because they don't come through the other side because he did a lot of effort to clean this guy up. The last of the Ochs knives was kind of a hardware store, meaning there was a whole bunch of hardware all over it. This guy, he has cleaned up pretty remarkably on it, certainly from the show side, and that's great. And I feel this knife, right now I am in the danger zone because I feel the knife trying to disassemble itself in my hand. The reason I'm holding it like this is that if the blade comes out, it'll just fall up against my hand with the unsharpened side. But nonetheless, that is, yeah. I feel the spring tension of the lock bar trying to disassemble the knife. So what I'm going to do is kind of pinch it and just set it down. And I thought it would fall apart, but oh, just needed a little bit of work to do that. Okay. So, what we see here is a pretty damn straightforward knife. So, we have ourselves titanium scales. We have a stainless washer inside the where the bearings want to ride. We have a stainless lock bar insert with an over-travel stop. And it is a metal over-travel stop right here. So, if I try to push this lock bar too far that direction, it will be stopped by that, rather than just using the inlay here as over-travel, which is nice. We do have a free spinning pivot, which is a little disappointing, but the back spacer itself has a little pin in it. The pin goes in the middle here. That aligns the back spacer as well. And we see that this inlay is glued in. This inlay is screwed in. Makes sense, especially with the lock bar in, lock bar being right there. So, and then we see the clip screw on the back side there, which we don't need to remove. Let's go ahead and get this guy cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and grab some rubbing alcohol on a little fabric swatch here. Clean up the blade here. Like I said, this has been used a little tiny bit. We have a little tiny bit of detent ball ramp from the looks of it. Could be a little stronger, but is that an illusion? Here, let me show you what I'm looking at here. See right there? I'll point with something that isn't my fingernail there. Right there, we see a little tiny bit of detent ball ramp, but we also see that it kind of misses the detent ball. It looks like that little bit of ramping didn't go where it mattered. Maybe there's a slight tolerance issue there. But anyways, it is barely there compared to some of the other detent ball ramps that are a little bit more serious. But, it's an effort at the very least, and it's probably better than nothing. So I use a Q-tip soaked in some rubbing alcohol here to just clean out this little area here. For what it's worth, the knife is very dry. To be fair, I over-oil knives. That's kind of what I do. It's not on the business card, but it probably should be. But nonetheless, this is running very dry. So as a result, once I get this guy cleaned up, it's probably going to run better. So it's always nice. All right, and then I'm going to go on ahead and put in some, clean this off. By the way, for what it's worth, there are people out there in the world who, should zoom out a little bit. There are people out there in the world who run their bearing knives completely dry, and that makes sense in some limited situations, right? If you're out in the middle of the freaking desert, or if you're in dusty conditions all the time, then oil does attract that crud there, right? And so there is the argument that, oh, well, running the knife dry will reduce the need for maintenance. And you're talking to a guy who enjoys maintenance on his pocket knives. So that's not really a compelling argument to me, but that doesn't mean it's wrong, strictly speaking. It just means it's not a compelling argument to me. But anyway, so people may make that claim. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use some 10-weight nano oil here, although knife pivot lube would work just as well. I'm going to go ahead and drop the bearing into position here. Just using the needle applicator here. Do rotate, rotate, rotate. Bearing happily. Next thing I'm going to do is, did I ever lubricate the pivot? I did not. So I'm going to just put a little drop of lubrication right onto the pivot here. Then again, I'm going to use the tip of the applicator here to rotate that around. Not that the blade wouldn't do it naturally, but it's occasionally valuable. All right, next thing I'm going to do, drop a little bit more, and that would also have wicked into the pivot area. But that was too much oil on the backside there, but as a result, I don't need that anymore. So I'll just rotate, rotate, rotate. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the detent ball hole here. For what it's worth, there is no internal pocketing, but that makes sense because there is external pocketing, right? They've removed a bunch of material to put these inlays in. So although you might expect internal milling at this price, the milling is still there. It's just external to things. So there is that. There is an external lock bar relief, which is fine. I gotta say, it's not the most attractive thing ever. The knife would have been a little clean with, cleaner, that is, with an internal relief, but whatever. Have I forgotten anything? I don't think so. So let's go on ahead and start by putting the pivot back in. No pivot collar or anything. So what I'm gonna do is use a little bit of blue Loctite on a stick here, and just screw in your pivot, right like so. Done and done. Okay, next I'm going to go on ahead and put a little bit of thread lock. Is this T8 as well? This is all T8 screws. That's nice. Go ahead, put a little bit of thread locker on there. By the way, I have kept the, you probably are noticing, but I kept pivot and then this screw in the order they came off the knife. That way I kind of know where things are on the knife, and I'm not putting the screws in different locations, different lengths. In practice, doesn't usually matter that much, but, well, certainly the pivot's usually different, but, on occasion, you can get makers who will use different screw lengths, depending, especially with 3D contoured handles. Becomes a factor. But okay, I think we should be roughly where we need to be. Now the question is just adjusting the pivot. So let's deploy it. Nice. And I deploy it a few times just to get lubrication spread out where it needs to. Feels nice, feels smooth. Let's see if we got any blade play. No. Okay, I'm going to try and loosen the pivot then a little tiny bit and see whether we can get it running a little smoother still. Nope, that introduced some blade play. So I'm going to tighten it back up a little bit. No play. We are dead centered. Oh, yeah. Knife is running better. With a little bit of lubrication, this is running a little bit nicer. No, it was bad before, but yeah, we're good to go. All right, that was easy. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourself an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.